Hello, everyone. My name is James Ho,
My name is Leonardo Tarragona.
and today we're going to be talking about Buddhism and the afterlife. So, with the afterlife, we have different stages, kind of like the beginning stages. We have the grieving stages, we have the Buddhist traditions, which involves like the funeral stage, and then also the Pure Land belief of Buddhism and the afterlife. So with grieving, it's a natural part of our family members to pass away from us from this world, because what we've learned so far is that life is impermanent.
Impermanent.
Everything is inevitable. Well, leading up to death, we have life. There wouldn't be life without death, and then there wouldn't be death without life. So,
Exactly.
there's one story about a lady named Kisa Gutami, and then
hmm
she brought her dead child to the Buddha, and she wanted to see if her child could be revived. So the Buddha told her if she can bring him any mustard seeds from a household who did not have anyone passing away, that her wish would be granted. So eventually she realizes that no household is free from death,
hmm
and that in turn she looked for arhatship by becoming a nun under the Buddhist school. And yeah, so kind
She
of like,
became like deeply impacted by everybody's story, and she realized that, oh well, I'm not the only one that suffers through like the the passing away of someone that is deeply like revered or
yeah, and then yeah, with those stories, it really kind of shook her. It kind of awoke her from her distraught, and she came to her senses. She's like, yes,
realization of like her surrounding,
yeah,
like
her
what's
surroundings, because she realized, she's like, oh, I've had a husband. He recently passed away too, and now my son is dead. So she's thinking she's lost all hope. But then the Buddha
right.
actually showed like a new light to her.
hmm
She's like, yes, death is it's a part of me now. And I think I also read when she was a monk and like nearing her enlightenment,
Yeah.
she came across Mara, and then Mara was kind of like taunting her, saying,
hmm
um oh, your husband is gone, your son is gone, are you
Right.
looking for any other men? And then she tells him like, there's no other men, like this life is impermanent.
Right.
um I will become, part of the living stream of energy and things that, so her confrontation with Mara, like, kind of like signifies that she's done with her distraught, she's done with her stress, because
Right.
there's no point of holding on to the past, like
hmm
the job has been done and her loved ones are passed away, but what she can do now is try
Uh-huh.
to attain, enlightenment, the passing of on, and then yeah, it's
And be accompanied by like a deep understanding of like of life and how the processes work.
yeah,
So her faith wasn't like led astray by Mara. It just like it strengthened it,
it did, because
and that's the
it,
way the Buddha would have handled it himself too.
and I also read from this story is that the lesson, someone analyzed that lesson, well, her engagement with Mara as a lesson to being like, oh, we can befriend our demons, they are a part of us, and
Yes.
then if we realize that they are a part of us, we can become at
Uh-huh.
peace with our own demons, we
And
can
that's what
befriend them, basically. Like,
and
it's like
that's what
inviting your enemy
yes.
to tea, like you're like, hey, sit down, let's just have some tea, let's have a talk.
Exactly. And if you feed into like what your enemy is trying to, like
Get at you
challenge
with
you on,
uh-huh
get at you with, then
mhm,
you're no better. You're supposed
then
to like
them.
actually provide help for your enemy to make him see a different way. That
Precisely.
it doesn't have to be, like me against you. We can be like, transcend together. And that's pretty much what later on I'll be talking about when I'm talking about the Bardo states of the afterlife. How there's a point where there's the friendly deities, and then after like the second week, you're presented with the wrathful deities, but you're supposed to recognize that they're the same peaceful deities, but they're
Hmm.
only like manifesting through a deeper intensity of your karma to try to like basically scare you, but into like realization, basically.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it's to try to like it's kind of like a test almost because they're trying to
exactly,
give
yeah,
you these visions. They're trying to see if they can tempt you, they can sway you a
yeah,
certain way, you know?
exactly, yeah. All right, so moving on.
Okay. Okay, so next we have Buddhist traditions. So it's very common for a Buddhist person to likely request services from a monk or nun
Mhm.
to assist them in the process of death and to make it more peaceful. And then before the moment of death, usually monks, nuns, family members, and loved ones, they come together and pray and chant the Buddhist sutras for the lost loved one. And deathbed chanting is very important in most Buddhist traditions because it's the last thing that the Buddhist hears. And so with that, it kind of transforms, kind of like helps their mental state move on throughout, you're at the whole process of death
Yeah.
because it's a very lengthy process according to the Buddhist tradition.
And there's that communal thing, the getting together with your local priest, your local monk, and also your family, and everyone being together. It's also therapeutic, like for the people, for the people of your family, and
Hmm.
obviously that creates a great energy that helps the person that's dead. But it also kind of it provides like a therapy for all your family to get together and to also mourn together because no one should mourn by themselves, and the person that's dying is encountering this different reality, but that's the whole point. No one should be able to mourn by themselves.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that you're still here, so you're kind of like doing your part and your justice by, helping them, trying to liberate any kind of like last
Yeah.
fears, last
Uh-huh.
attachments, last
Right.
lingerings that they have in this world. You're just telling them that everything's going to be okay. We're slowly trying to learn how to live, without you. And then
Right.
it's kind of like the whole process of,
Hmm.
hey, we're helping you leave from this earth, as well as at the same time, it's kind of
It,
strengthening us a little bit by
yeah, it's difficult.
having to
It's
cope with
okay to
it.
admit it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay to admit it that it's difficult, but that you wish for that person's continuation and the path that they're going and
Mhm.
some great luck. You know.
Yeah, and it's also believed in the Mahayana traditions that there's like a strong mental consciousness that still occurs even after death because it's they're saying that some Buddhists say that there is no spirit while some Buddhists say that
Uh,
there is because it's kind of
like a
like it's.
believing of the soul, you're saying?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
some do reject the soul, and then
yeah,
some Mahayanas do believe that there's like a small soul or like some type of consciousness that is created by your karma, kind of like from your
yeah.
memories of your past lives, from your life, things and that. It's kind of like one small energy that continues after death. I think that's what they're trying to say because it's like the emotions we've gathered from our experiences, it's the
Exactly.
things that
Yeah.
we've done, it's the people that we've met, things of that nature,
The objects that we frequently like we're like
engaging with.
engaging with.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, there's with Buddhism, like as opposed to Hinduism, like there's a less uh, I guess idea of the soul, and basically because like they have that standing to where they say um like life, everything is impermanent, even like
Hmm.
your spirit, but in essence, I think that they could basically both intertwine in the sense that there could be an ultimate soul, like the ultimate
Yeah.
consciousness would be like my soul would be part of someone else's soul, and we're all part of this like complete soul. So we're like from a fountain of souls, like, but
Yeah.
I think that Hinduism, like, it believes on the specific soul, like my soul, very unique and different from your soul, for example. Um,
Precisely.
but I think Buddhism is like there's no me or you. there's like everyone is from the same fountain in
Yeah,
a way.
of energy, basically, because
So there is no soul, but eventually, like ultimately, there is just one soul.
so
Like
exactly.
and that pulls from that. So basically, they both I think might believe in a soul, just like a different concept of it.
Yeah, there's very different concepts because they can get into it by saying that you know, there can be a soul because it's what is lingering inside of us. It's like it's that
Hmm.
that consciousness, that energy, that kind of like fire, so to say, that spark, you know.
Hmm.
That they say that, stars can have some lives because, they're a heat source. They emit
Yeah.
energy. So, you know, I think that it's possible because with that, so the analogy I got from the whole after death experience is they're
Uh-huh.
saying that, how a candle is lit up. So let's say you have like five candles lit up by the same lighter,
Okay.
but that light
Yes.
is like the energy that's carried on to those five candles. But those five candles flames are very different because even though they come from the same source, they're just different because they're five individual flames, but they
Right,
came from the same
but they
source.
came from the same source,
See?
which is what could be that ultimate soul,
Yeah,
which
that
is permanent and all existent and eternal. But but yeah, like I think the concepts kind of differ, but they probably both believe in the same thing. They just like get mixed up, like most of the religions do, you know?
yeah, they do. You're right. Yeah,
Okay, so
that
what else did you have to say about this slide?
oh yeah, so it's also believed that in the Mahayana traditions that we pray for the dead for 49 days after
Right.
passing. And then 49 days is like the process it takes for them to go through rebirth. And then some rebirths are shorter or even longer than 49 days. I think someone says that it can take up to like 7 years, even like 2 years. It's just a
Yeah.
long time. And then, so kind of like my personal experiences with
Hmm.
kind of like the whole process of death is I've actually had three family members that passed away. And then
Hmm.
also went to one of my friend's grandmother's
Yeah.
funeral too. So they're all Buddhist funerals. So the
Yeah.
first one was for my aunt, and then she was my aunt on my dad's side,
Hmm.
so my dad's sister. And yeah, it was kind of like the first time that I really experienced with death.
Were you very young or what?
Yeah, I was pretty young. I think I
Okay.
was like I can't remember what year I was. I was probably like around like 13, 14, so to say.
Okay.
And then
Preteen.
it kind of really shook me. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I had to like come to terms with it at
It
the whole
really
point.
does because like nobody's really familiar with like at the young age
Exactly.
death to where like you're no longer like being able to engage with that person or that person is no longer seemingly like present anymore. And yeah, it's pretty. I've only had like one major death that I can recall, and that was my grandpa. But yeah, it's definitely like a reality changer. But also it always like in the books and whatnot, it also describes that it's like a very transformative period, not only for the person that's dying, but the person like that's living to kind of have a different outlook on life and like cherish and value like
Mhm.
the people that they have and the present moment. And that's kind of like the lesson of death too, that nothing is permanent. So like you have to take advantage of what you have.
Exactly, exactly. And then so during that time, we prayed for 49 days, and I believe my cousins they ate vegetarian for 49 days.
Right.
And then I also started eating vegetarian because my cousin passed away, and
Hmm.
then my father passed away and because he had leukemia.
So
And
basically, you had to be vegetarian for a while. Are
yeah,
you still vegetarian
for a
or?
while. No, I'm
But
actually, I went back to eating normal, but from
but
here and there on like the death anniversary days, my family will actually will cook food for them, like
uh-huh.
vegetarian food, and then burn some incense, and then that day I'll eat vegetarian. It's
That's
really
really interesting. I
yeah.
think it's partially trying to like be as pure as possible in the moment, and honoring that and worshiping the person. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, there's something like pure about like not eating meat or not taking you know part in any suffering and like
Yeah,
at least in in a moment where it's very sacred.
yeah, it is. And then so throughout like the whole funeral process, well, I'll
Right.
tell you about like the one for my dad. So we had
Okay.
wake days, and then for each day we'll have like a group of monks from my local temple to come in and pray for him. So we'll have our morning ceremony. There would be a night ceremony, and then so
Yeah.
I would have to stand there, and then whenever someone goes to burn incense for my father, I would have to stand there and bow 3 times during
Okay.
that process. And then we also, yeah, on cremation day there's a ceremony as well. That's the last farewell ceremony, and then we have monks come in, and we had the ceremony, and then after that, later, like a few days later, I would have to bring the urn where my dad was back to our
Uh-huh.
local temple where we would keep him. There's like
And
an actual section at the temple that
yes.
keeps urns for our loved ones. Yes.
Do they keep it for a while and then you disperse it or what?
It's just, yeah, we keep it for a while. I think the time you disperse it depends on each family.
Uh,
'Cause oh yeah, one of my grandmothers, she passed away not uh, I think maybe in '01, so a while back.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, there was a funeral there too, and then they kept her ashes. I think I'm not sure where the ashes are now. I'd have to go check, but yeah.
But do you guys have the tradition of like spreading them
Oh
after?
wait, we do. Some people would do. I think another one of my aunts, yeah, passed away. It was from my mom's side. It's actually weird. So it was the same year that the two aunts passed away. And then the
Uh,
another weird thing is that now the two households are living next to each other because they're both my cousins. And then yeah,
yeah.
it's yeah, funny how life works. But yeah,
But also the Vajrayana tradition or branch from Buddhism, which is the one that I'm going to be covering a lot about. They also have the mentality or like the thought process that the consciousness does continue after death, and
it does.
that the typical is also 49 days
Hmm.
that people they think that the person is going through the bardo. Sometimes it takes longer, like you say.
It does.
Sometimes it's shorter. Like for example, I've heard that like when it's like an accident, like a tragic accident, like a fatal car crash and someone dies, sometimes it's gone through a lot faster because the person's it's like
Instantaneously.
instantaneously like
Yeah,
flash, like they don't know how to cope, so
with that.
they go through the bardas really fast and they typically reincarnate really fast. So that might not take 49 days, but someone that dies like a natural death might go through the 49 days with all the constant like opportunities to become enlightened.
Oh yeah, and then one other topic to touch about this is the actual like so the ashes from the Buddha
Yeah,
after their death, after his death, the people wanted to disperse them out, his part of his ashes out to different
yeah,
stupas.
yeah,
And so I believe King Asoka, he actually
yeah.
dispersed them out even more. So he wanted them to be like, in various different parts of India so that everyone could come and pay their respects. My aunt, she actually went to a few of those stupas because she
Oh yeah,
recently went on a Buddhist, a retreat back to
nice.
India to go to
Okay.
those religious areas. So yeah, that was it was really interesting to see a lot of pictures from her.
Have you ever went
No, I've actually
anywhere?
wanted to go. No, I haven't actually been outside this country. Probably the only place I've been is to Canada. But yeah,
Man, that's gonna be nice when you get to. I
yeah,
would really like to go. I haven't been able to go anywhere.
yeah.
Uh, okay, so what do you got coming next?
Okay, so next we have the Pure Land Buddhism. So in the
Okay.
Mahayana traditions, the Pure Land Sutras emphasize the idea of a Western Pure Land. It's called Sukhavati in the Pali
Okay.
and the Sanskrit language. And the
Hmm.
Sukhavati land of Amitayus, which means infinite life, and Amitabha, which means infinite light. And then the Pure Land Sutras kind of explain that it's difficult for the average Buddhist layperson to
Hmm.
maybe engage in meditation, the secular life, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like a difficult journey to attain nirvana with the hustle and bustle of the everyday life that we
Right.
continuously have. So
Yeah.
the idea is that if we hold on to the name of Amitabha
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of envision this pure land of bliss in our head, that at the juncture of our death, at the moment of our death, the Amitabha Buddha will come alongside with his two bodhisattvas
Mm-hmm.
and kind of rescue that lingering spirit that we want to have because we have full faith in him to go to his pure land. And so you could say that this pure land can be compared to what Western thinks as the eternal heaven,
Yeah.
what most like Christians and Islamics and
So
various other religions believe in.
so I remember talking about it with you when you were describing the Pure Land. It's not necessarily the permanent, like,
It kind of is because so
but
so this
like, isn't it a place where one is able to be sheltered from any distractions and like
yes,
able to attain enlightenment there and then finally reach the end goal?
exactly, because basically
Mhm.
here what I got from is like it's basically a university for enlightenment. So
Yes,
basically here,
exactly.
if you get the ticket into here, you're
Yes.
enrolled for enlightenment. So
Hmm.
your teacher, your ultimate teacher is Amitabha or Amitayus.
Yes.
So everything there will be related to the Dharma body. Like everything in
You were
this place
describing something about
encompasses.
birds.
Yes, birds. There's birds like you can see from this picture and below. This is basically what it looks like. This is the
The
art,
the,
the
the Pure Land
imagination.
bliss. Okay.
Yes, of the Pure Land bliss. So in the water you have like swans, you have lotus flowers
Right. Like
everywhere.
people
Everything is
meditate
made
and like.
of like gold, various minerals like
Mhm.
jewels, sapphires, diamonds.
Definitely like an inspiring environment for someone that's trying
Yes.
to become enlightened. Yeah.
Yes. So in here it's different than the heaven or the godly realms of
Right.
samsara because
Yes.
in this place in this Western pure land of bliss they enter a stage of non-retrogression, which means
Hmm.
they do not retrogress back into the stages of samsara.
Yeah.
They
They just
they
stay in here until
yeah,
they attain enlightenment.
yeah, precisely because everything here just embodies the dharma, embodies you know they say that even other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can reach this land by traveling from their various Buddha lands to pay their respect to Amitabha Buddha. Yeah, so I mean it's a really interesting concept. Personally, my family believes in this a lot, so you'll see it in a lot of Mahayana traditions
Okay.
that will be reading the Pure Land Sutras.
Yeah, I've never prior to this kind of like heard about the Pure Land. I haven't encountered it in like what I've read before, but yeah, it's definitely interesting.
It's
How
very
someone
big
can,
in my country.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, uh,
it is. It's kind of like one of the main branches. So in Vietnam, there'll be a lot of Mahayana like Buddhist temples, and
uh-huh.
you'll see the various statues of Amitabha Buddha there as well.
It kind of reminds me of the three jewels in a sense that you can like find refuge in this Pure Land
Basically,
bliss
is
and like attain enlightenment through your pure faith in that one thing. Like, and
precisely.
then yeah. So, do you have like you said you had a video?
Oh yeah, I had a video. So let me go to that video now. Okay, short clip of Venerable Guan Cheng. He's talking about the Amitabha Sutra.
Okay. Put it on your main screen so we can.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. You don't see it, right?
No, I'm not seeing it
Okay,
right
okay, okay. My bad.
now. You're
Let's
good.
see. Right here should be here.
Okay. I
Is it
see it
full
now.
screen now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can't hear the audio if you could
Oh, you
turn it up.
can't turn it up. All right.
The Buddha said we have
Okay, good.
an afterlife. We have a life before, we have a present life, we have an afterlife. Actually, we have afterlives. We have a lot of lives after if we don't get out of the six paths of reincarnation. We always will be reincarnating life after life and life after life. And if we have to die, everybody has to.
Hmm.
So it's Anybody here who does not have to die, raise your hand. Die. No exception.
That's the truth.
Why don't we think about this after-death situation? Do we have to think about it? I think we should think about it. What happens after we die? I can think of two possibilities. Of course, there's a lot of possibilities. It's just like when people ask me, is 21st the last day? I always say, no, we're going to survive. And they said, that's a smart answer. Why? Because if we die, who's going to testify that you're right or you're wrong? So if you say, we'll survive on the 21st, and if you're right, so we can talk about it and say, oh, you're right. We didn't die. But if you die, nobody's going to testify you. So, if after this life we have to die, then we want to make sure that we go to a place that is good for us. And 2,600 years ago, on one occasion, the Buddha mentioned a place, a location, a world that we can go after death. That is to say, if we follow the Buddha's teaching, we meditate, we do it every day, and we get enlightened in this life. In other words, with our self-efforts, we reach nirvana. And after body, we shut off this body, then we don't go into reincarnation, we go to nirvana, a place where we achieve complete enlightenment, a place where we say, Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi, or a place where no more suffering, no more pain for us. But we want to go there, we have to work at it. In other words, you have to use your self-efforts to work at it every day, purifying your karma, then you go to nirvana, then no more reincarnation. What happened to those that we try our very best in this life? We don't succeed. We still have to go to reincarnation. The Buddha said, don't go into reincarnation, the 6 parts of reincarnation again. For all those who don't get enlightened, go to the Pure Land, the land of bliss.
Right.
And one day the Buddha disclosed there's such a location, such a world that we can go, even though we haven't got enlightened in this world, we still can go to that world where no more reincarnation. And we call that the expedient means of the practice. The land where Amitabha Buddha was in there teaching all sentient beings who were living in there to attain enlightenment. In other words, in this world, we have a lot of teachers, a lot of gurus telling you about the Buddha's teaching, and you follow the Buddha's teaching, then you get enlightened. But for those who don't get enlightened, what happened? You want to go to that Pure Land, where Amitabha Buddha was there teaching you to become the Buddha. If I am teaching you to become the Buddha, your chance of success is slim. I'm not a Buddha. I'm not the Buddha yet. But if you have the Buddha teaching you to be the Buddha, your chance of success is extremely high. Your probability is probably...
Go ahead and pause it, man.
It's a matter of time. Because in that world, the principal is Amitabha Buddha. The assistant principal or the assistant professor is Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. Another assistant professor is Mahapaspaprapta Bodhisattva. So there are two Buddhist.
So with that, there's 2 other bodhisattvas. So in Vietnamese, I have all 3 names for them. So in Vietnamese, the Amitabha Buddha is Ai Da Phật, and then the other bodhisattva, we call her, we say Namo Dai Bi Guan Cheng Bồ Tát. Okay. Other bodhisattva, we say Namo Dai Te Chi Bồ Tát. So you're basically right. It's
you said one of them is a female? Or?
They so in various sects they can be both
Right.
be looking as female or male.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Equalized.
Yeah, it's
Right.
equalized because in this land they said that there is no gender.
Right.
Everyone
Right.
is all together. Everyone is unison. Everyone is
Exactly.
basically
There's
a
no
lotus flower.
dualism.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
no dualism. Everyone is a lotus flower in here. You'll be born as a lotus flower. Okay.
All
Let me
right. Let's
stop share. I
start
think.
working on.
Yeah.
Let's start pulling up mine. So
Okay. I think you can share now.
let's see. Share screen.
Yeah, that was an interesting clip, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
He
sir.
explained it well.
Yeah,
Okay.
he did.
So are you seeing it full
Yeah,
screen
I'm
now?
I'm seeing it right now, and then now it's in the slideshow mode.
Okay. All right. So basically, I'm covering a little bit of the. I mean, they interlap, but I'm covering the branch of Bahrayana, which is basically like north of India, kind of like Himalayan, Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, those areas, and there's some other areas of China, but they're very focused on like tantra and like different ways to get into a meditative state and practice their meditation, instruments, chants,
Hmm.
a lot of different practices like mandalas, like meditating on a mandala and doing all these various things. Um, so what I'm going to be going over is basically the circle of life, reincarnation, samsara, karma, and then I'm going to be talking about a book that is central to the foundation of this Vajrayana tradition. So, or is it? Would it say? Would you say it Todo?
I say Bardo Todo. It's
Yes,
in. It
Bardo
should be
Todo.
in Tibetan, so I
Yeah.
can't really have a Tibetan accent for that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so this describes that there's a total of 6 bardos, which is like a mental state.
Mhm.
There's 3 that you encounter in this life, and then 3 in the afterlife. And then I'll be going over the 6 states of the existence which you can reincarnate into once you do once you are reborn. So basically, reincarnation happens because there's karma, there's leftover karma, and you're reincarnated into a realm of desire, the material realm, where people have attachment to a location or a time or objects or people. Um, and the Buddha basically talked about this realm of desire through the 4 noble truths. Um, and the first noble truth is basically that we all we all have
Suffering,
we all basically encounter suffering no
suffering in our
matter
lives. Hmm.
no matter who we are, no matter how rich. We all have suffering. We all go through losing loved ones. We all go through bad things happening to us, whether we lose a job or
Car
or
accident.
basically
Yep.
accidents, just a lot of things. So it's inevitable, and also you suffer because you age, hey, you know, your body doesn't work like it used to anymore.
Get
Um,
sick.
yeah, so there's this whole process, and it's inevitable. So this is the reason. This is the reason. I mean, suffering is inevitable, but then the second noble truth is basically the reason why we suffer be, is because we have these attachments, these craving. This is all part of life. This is a natural process. If we understand the process, we don't suffer from it. We see it for how it is, and what we can do in the moment to
Relieve
bring
our yeah, kind of like relieve our stress from it. Kind of like take our minds off of it.
right
Not
and
engage in it too
something
much.
beneficial and
Yeah.
not something that actually ends up harming you in the present. So
Exactly.
why we suffer? Well, we suffer because we have these attachments, these desires. Like, oh, I crave this person to be in my life forever, and they don't really have. I'm not really giving them the opportunity to move on and experience different states.
Experiences.
So in a way, like sometimes when we're like mourning someone's death, like it's really intense, but we really want that person to be there, and that person knows that, but you have to let go. You have to let go of things. You can't just embody like this like attachment, because it will make you suffer and make other people suffer too, because
Precisely.
you're pulling against a natural force. and it's gonna inevitably like
Kind of like pull you in and out of that state. So basically, kind of what the Buddha wants us to do is kind of cope with death. It's a part of life. It's okay to be
okay,
sad, you know,
yeah,
to feel grief, to feel sorrow, to feel bad for yourself when, you know, someone, a loved one is just gone for your life so all of a sudden, you know, like
yeah,
it's a quick reaction and you just like you're just in shock. Kind of like one example I would give is the tragic accident of Kobe Bryant. You know,
yes,
it literally shocked the world. You know, but it's
right.
hey, we have to like, you know, cope with it and just be like, you know, it's part of life. Things of that nature do happen. So
Even to people that seem untouchable because of their
exactly,
fame or because of their status or whatever, and then look at that, like he died and so did his daughter, and that was like really
that's
unfortunate,
that's
you know.
actually tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
lost for words.
yeah. So the third noble truth is, if it basically says that if you want to, I mean, in reality, if you want to seize the suffering, you have to follow the Eightfold Path, or you have to. The only way to get rid of this suffering is by realization of this of reality, and the way to do it is by practicing with the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold set of principles, set of virtues that one is to develop during their life to be a better person, to live in accordance to what the Buddha taught, so that when you encounter your own death, you can basically either attain enlightenment or gain a better
Our
reincarnation
nation, yeah,
to where you can make way to for nirvana.
enlightenment.
Yeah. So it's important to know that though karma can bring more fruitful opportunities for an individual, like being born in a god realm, there is technically no such thing as good karma, because the idea behind it is to get rid of the karma. That so like there's karmas that bring about more opportunities, but overall, in the end, you want to have no and any action generates good karma or bad karma based on various factors. For example, the Eightfold Path says you have to have right action, right speech, right thought, for example. Those things generate good karma and bad
Hmm.
karma. Those are things that when you die, you have an experience of all these things that you've been thinking and you've been doing and throughout your whole life. So you relive this, and this is also described in other spiritual texts and also like near death experiences, that you go through and kind of relive moments of your life, and you get to see you for who you are. And a lot of people are surprised. They're like, oh wow, I was actually a pretty shitty person. um, so yeah, these things generate this energy, this good karma, bad karma thing, and basically it accumulates. And if there's still karma left after you die, you don't overcome your own karma during death, which manifests in obstacles,
Yep.
uh, it, then you will be reborn into one of the six realms. But basically, where you're going to be reborn is judged by like
What happened?
the things that you weren't able to overcome,
Hmm.
and the karma you weren't able to cash in or like basically get rid of. That so the next life provides you with opportunities to basically live out your karma, and that's what it is. Um, so it's the realm of samsara. So with the Vajrayana branch of Buddhism, centered around like the book called Bardo Todo, and it's also this Vajrayana origin. It has various schools, and in the Nyingma tradition, which is the fourth, is the eldest of all four schools in Tibetan Buddhism. It is This book is principal to that, and they basically they embody well, they celebrate local deities, but also they chant, and they have this book read to people as they're about to die or have died. There's instructions also in this book for family members to do certain things, take a part of in certain actions that can help them and also help the person that's dying and going through these states between death and rebirth. So it was said to be written by Padmasambhava, which is basically the person who claimed he was a reincarnation of Buddha, and Buddha did say he was going to reincarnate in the future as a master and give a sort of important teaching to the world. And Padmasambhava was the guy who claimed that he was the reincarnation, and he came up with these texts which provided people with kind of a manual on how to deal with death and how to go about these death states that we go through.
So
Yes.
would you say it's kind of like the Tibetan Bible of death, so to say, in the afterlife? Because you see like a manuscript, kind of like it leads some guidelines to the process of death, what family members can go through, kind of like what they envision, what kind of
it's basically, I mean, for these people in the Nyingma tradition and Vajrayana, it's a way of life. Like all their life is centered around this. They you know, I don't know if you've ever seen, but they have all around the temples and the cities, they have the prayer wheels.
They do.
And they roll them. Like, it's just a way of life. Like everything is centered around this concept that life is not permanent, and that we have to do these sort of actions if we want to reap the most out of our lives. So anyways, it was discovered in the 14th century by Karma Lingpa, which he discovered these texts. I don't know how, I forgot, but it was in like a hill or buried or in a mountain.
Yeah, it's probably some manuscripts.
Yeah, and it was buried by like students of Padmasambhava. But it was
Wow.
discovered, and then and then he decided to basically, it didn't necessarily was revealed to the world. It was revealed to the the society or whatnot, and then eventually with the expansion of the Western world and whatnot, like then they decided, mainly speaking in the 60s, I would say like 50s to like 70s and 80s, where people started from Tibet like move westward and spread the word mainly because of the exiles that were happening because of the Chinese, the Communist Party. They were
the government, they're being pretty strict.
They were trying to eradicate like the Tibetan religions.
Yeah, they were.
And ways of thought, trying to control them and form this new religion or whatever. So basically, the monks and the lamas and all those people decided to spread the word so it wouldn't be destructed by the forces that were trying to, you know, basically bury the facts, bury the truth, bury the culture. So moving on, so there's this book, which is also called The Liberation Through Hearing During the Intermediate States. It mentions six total bardos, six total mental states of consciousness, but the first three are actually in the life of someone. So one is the life that you live. This is called the bardo of life, the ordinary waking consciousness, where you know you used to work, to go to school, you basically you know, a mundane, regular life things. But this is also a valuable state, and that can bring about a lot of change and a lot of good or bad generating karma. So
also some insight to the world too, because you're kind of like going through the experiences of life through this waking state. And then I think I also read, I think in an article somewhere, that during like some of these bardo stages of life, someone might experience like near-death experiences,
Yes.
deja vu, deja vu occurrence that you're like, maybe this has happened before. It's kind of like it's a
Right.
confusing state because you don't know how to engage with it. You're like, this feels like it's happened before, but it's just like a strange feeling. Like it's unexplainable. That's what deja vu.
A lot of the book that I'm going to be quoting from in a little bit, they actually have a section dedicated to near-death experiences because they found it
Mm,
fascinating how there were so many accounts of people reporting like a very white intense light, and then meeting a spiritual teacher, and them saying, well, you have to go back, and but then afterwards they're all of a sudden changed and they're very spiritual, like
mm.
they basically have a different outlook on life once they see this reality. So this has a lot to do with the basically the bardo, the first bardo when you die, the bardo of I think it's the bardo of the moment of death. It's like encountering the white light. But but yeah, l- like regular life has a value
Effects. Yeah.
that it can be taken advantage of, but also, I mean, advantage, no, take it for granted, but also it can have a great, tremendous benefit for you. But the other one, most importantly, is the bardo of dhyana, which is meditation, and this is an effort consciousness, like a directed consciousness, to where you're focused on either one pointed mind, pointedness of mind, like towards something, or basically towards nothingness. But
The idea of non-self. That like.
non-ego,
Mhm.
non-self, yeah. Getting rid of your surrounding, you're basically not paying attention to your senses, finding that grounding state. And this is probably one of the most important bardos of your current life, because it is the one that you can control the most, but also the one that you have to uh, that state that you encounter while practicing in your life. You have to find that state once you are encountering death, so that you can actually merge with the light, or merge with the infinite, and not shy away from it, and go to the reincarnation again.
Process.
You have to practice your meditation during life, so you can use the meditative state once once you are in a moment of death. But then the other bardo that is described as the dream, the dream bardo, which is basically normal sleep, the unconscious mind, processes that are happening without us being conscious. And these are important too, um, because they actually reveal a lot of insight into our lives. Basically, when we fall asleep, um, the 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 unconscious mind comes up and kind of reflects on the day-to-day experiences.
Yeah.
It
Like.
brings like what?
Like you're saying, like it brings kind of like a reflection of what you're thinking throughout the day, like what your experiences, the people you're engaging with,
Yeah,
the
a lot.
emotions you're going through. It kind of like it's like a small reflection of it. That's why like
It,
sometimes some
it,
dreams is like
yeah,
either gives like either an insight or like kind of like a small explanation or something, like because dreams just they seem like so strange, sometimes they
yeah,
seem very mundane, sometimes they seem very random, but then also sometimes they're like either tragic, they're happy,
right.
it can vary, from time to time. It's
And
actually an interesting state.
it's interesting how there's a lot of things that you encounter in death, the death of the bardos, that are actually pretty having a dream. It's like, in a way, it's like having this um, going through these death states. But obviously, these death states are way more intense than these dreams. But basically, everyone dreams. People say, like, oh, I don't remember. Like, a lot of people don't remember because they don't make the effort to remember their dreams. But um, there's a lot of methods to do so. And during dreams, the unconscious kind of brings about symbols, like whether it's like this brings about a certain character that and but it's basically like embedded in a symbol, like what does this person represent for me, or what does this thing represent, and it kind of it throws around like these psychic messages
Hmm. Precisely. That you feel.
And things that you need to work through. Sometimes it's like a filter for your conscious mind to like reboot itself, or like, hey, tell it something's going wrong. If you're having like a nightmare and like something bad is happening, sometimes it can be interpreted as like, here, there's something that your dream is trying to tell you that you're doing wrong, or something that's trying to warn you, and you should deal with it, and also um, make certain changes in your life. Basically, it's like a little mini like death. It's interesting, but it's like
Yeah,
also a self reflection of yourself and your karma, and also your actions.
it is, because there's always like that one dream that people always talk about, the one that they're falling like endlessly, that
Oh
one
yeah,
recurring
no,
dream.
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a, I'm reading a book right now and I'm finishing it up. I'll recommend it to you later, but it's all about dreams. It's all about like
Mm.
symbology and whatnot, and they talk a lot about dream analysis of like many people, and a lot of people do have similar dreams, and these similar dreams, like of that you've mentioned, for example, falling, or or encountering like a demon, or encountering like these symbols, and they all have some meaning to it. A lot of people are like, oh,
They
it's just
do.
it's just random, but like
Yeah, it is.
they're not looking, you know it's random because it doesn't follow the like logic of like our conscious mind, but it puts stuff together through metaphors and whatnot. So
Yeah, I
so
think you're right though, because some of my dreams, they've been really strange, but
mhm.
sometimes I do think there's like kind of like a deeper meaning, a deeper
Yeah,
understanding to it,
yeah.
because it's just from the experiences that we've had, but then it's just like, I don't know, there
They're
has to be
twisted,
some,
yeah.
yeah, there has to be some underlying message to some of them, even though like they're presented to us in like, a very strange imagery way, kind of way, but it's just
Yeah, and I mean the way
depends.
to take it is like you have to reflect on the dream, you have to reflect on
Mhm.
what the symbols mean and why this happened and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's basically like this, it's another state to consider, and these three in your life you have to consider to be able to actually reap the most benefit out of your life, and be prepared for the three parties that come afterwards. Which the first one is called the Chikai Bardo, and is the Bardo of the moment of death, which is sometimes described as like a rising sun. And if you don't take the opportunity to embrace that moment, it kind of dawns, the light dawns, and you go into like a darker, more comfortable light, like a dim light, and you move away from that, and then you go into the other bardos. But this is the typical clear light reality that everyone experiences during near death experiences, and definitely through like death. Um,
Oh,
for a
so
lot,
kind of like the you would say it would be kind of like the small light that everyone sort of says that they experience or see in their near death experiences, like, oh, like
right, this
I
very
was
bright
almost
light.
gone, yeah, and I was
Uh-huh.
almost gone, and then it's just this bright light is just like right there, but then all of a sudden I'm back, and it's
Right.
really strange.
And typically they have the similar imagery of like the tunnel, and then there's like the white light,
Hmm.
and then they typically meet a figurehead, whether it be Jesus or whoever they're familiar with, the embodiment of a spiritual teacher, and they have a conversation or whatnot.
Hmm.
But yeah, this clear light reality is like very intense. It's and for many people it's very shocking. It's like, wow, I've never, for many people that haven't heard the dharma, or haven't been part of any spiritual practice, this is like really intense, and they're like, "Well, I don't understand what this is,"
Hmm.
and this is very, it makes me very anxious or very nervous or whatnot. And so your intent, your natural tendency would is the same natural tendency that you have when you were alive. Like when something's so shocking, you're just kind of like,
Whoa, yeah.
you push it away. You're like, I don't know. I don't think that's like something that is good. I think that could be harmful. Whatever, you're scared of it. So a lot of people miss out that opportunity, but it is the nearest opportunity that one has to become spiritually enlightened. And what they tell you to do in this state is is to meditate. And I have a couple quotes from the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's kind of like a intro book to the actual Tibetan Book of the Dead. Um, but like you were mentioning before, how basically for the family and and the dying person, one invites a monk or a spiritual teacher or master to the house to read certain verses or chant. And for a lot of these people in the Enigma uh, tradition, they read about the phrases from this book, and it's and one of the things that is read is starts out this very familiar phrase. It says, "O son or daughter of an enlightened family, what is called death has now arrived, so adopt this attitude. I have arrived at the time of death, so now by means of this death I will adopt only the attitude of the enlightened state of mind, loving kindness, compassion, and attain perfect enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings who are limitless, are as limitless as space." So these verses are constantly being like recited um, while the person is dying or has
It
died.
it's because with that it's kind of like the helping of the dead to realize,
Yes,
yes, this is inevitable because we all have to go through this. So it's kind of like a reassurance. It's okay for you to go through this process, you know?
it's a reassurance, but it's also like a snapping, like, hey, this is what you're going through right now. This person, a spiritual teacher, is like guiding you. Sometimes they guide you through it. They're like, this is what you're going through right now, and this is what you should do to make become enlightened or gain a better rebirth. Um, so they have that's this is why they either chant or they recite these phrases so they can remind the person, hey, you're going through this portal right now. This is what you're going to experience. Don't fear. Don't fear from this, or like overcome this. Um, so once they have reached the first bardo, um, which in this book is called ground luminosity, but basically it's it states this grounding, like eternal light, this clear light reality. Um,
And with that, it's kind of like you're saying, it's reassuring them. It's saying you're gonna go through this process. You're gonna go through that. You might see these type of visions. Don't fret and just try to like either cope with it or like
mhm.
go through that experience and try to like kind of learn from that experience what these images are
the the
that
the
mental state that you're in the afterlife, so to say.
In the Tibetan Book of the Dead says about this ground luminosity, this first part of it says, the nature of everything is open, empty, naked like the sky, luminous emptiness without center or circumference, the pure naked Rigpa dawns. Then is Padmasan Baba describes luminosity, the self-originated clear light, which from the very beginning was never born, the child of Rigpa, which is itself without any parents. How amazing! The self-originated wisdom has not been created by anyone. How amazing! It has never experienced birth and has nothing in it that could cause it to die. How amazing! So they're the only thing permanent is basically this eternal light, this eternal.
Yeah, the eternal light, the idea of the non-self, the non-attachment, the non-belonging. So it's kind of like that eternal state that basically once you reach nirvana, you enter kind of like, I don't know, you would say it's like a solitude or it's kind of like an eternal bliss that you don't like have any fears, any attachments, any like cravings, any more desires,
But you can also, even though you don't have like a desire, or feeling, or craving, from what it was described, like you have basically a part in the kingdom of heaven, or a part in a part of God, to where you can be all sentient, all omnipresent, like you can be eternal, have all these. Basically, you are God because you become God. You become with God, one with God. So basically, you have all the abilities, but it is not to be confused with like the God realms, for example, to where in any of this. You just experience, like you experience everyone's experience. Like you're part of that conscious that multi. You are the fountain, so you have everything that the fountain. Um, so
And then one kind of like idea and story that I have with this is I've also watched a clip. It was about the Buddha actually trying to teach one of the devas in one of the heavens. I forgot which Hindu god they were, but the name. But
could it
basically,
be
he was
Brahma, Vishnu,
yeah.
or
It would be either Brahma or Vishnu. So
okay?
the Buddha himself was trying to teach either Brahma. I think it would. Was it Brahma? It was either Brahma or Vishnu, right? And then he was saying like, find me, like since you're Almighty God, to try to see if you can find me. And legit, the Buddha took him to various parts of the world, the galaxy, and then he couldn't find him until he looked up and the Buddha was walking above him,
Uh-huh.
literally walking above him, like he was there the whole time. So basically, the Buddha is saying that everyone has the potential of the Buddha nature to be
Hmm.
like, one with everything, the eternal like life, the eternal like
Everyone has that
source.
opportunity
Yeah,
because everyone is part. Everyone has that inner Buddha, for example, in them. They're just at different levels of their development.
precisely.
Everyone is Buddha, but they haven't fully embodied it yet, and that's the whole process of like reincarnation states. So the second state is once you fail to recognize this light, which for a lot of people because they're either shocked by it or they don't even recognize it.
Hmm.
They just go straight for like the dim and like more comfortable uh, um, realm, which is so they go towards the second bardo, which is called the Chongyed bardo, and it's the bardo of experiencing multiple different realities, and it's a lot of like these visions, where a lot of forms manifest themselves and present themselves to you in very like intense ways. So in the first week and a half, or in the first week after you experience that clear light reality, you're presented with these Buddha forms, these peaceful deities. That's what they're called, and in a way, it's kind of like the Pure Land bliss in a way, in such that these deities do provide. They show you the teaching. They they show you the virtues that they embody, and you're supposed to recognize them for who they are, and you're supposed to either merge with them or like
Hmm.
or like realize
Their
their
truth, their
their
truth, their dharma. They're trying to expound upon you.
right, and then meditate on that, or
Hmm.
be able to attain enlightenment. However, if like one does not, and they encounter these wrathful deities where they do really horrendous, intense things to you. Well, they don't really do anything necessarily to you, but they make you feel like they're
Hmm.
doing this to you.
Yeah.
They create these hallucinations to where you're either thinking that they're eating you alive, or they want to eat you, or they want to cut you with knives, or they want to burn you with like iron, steel, or just do really evil things, and people are pretty much tormented at this
Hmm.
state because they're like
Shocked.
19th day of the total of 49 days that they talk about. Um, but these, the thing that one is recited by the spiritual master when they recognize that this person is going through the second state, um, which is also called dharmata. It says a lot of things are recited. Here's a little phrase. It says, "Now, when the bardo of dharmata dawns upon me. I will abandon all fear and terror. I will recognize whatever appears as a display of my own rigpa or karma, and know it will be the natural appearance of this bardo. Now that I have reached this crucial point, I will not fear the peaceful and wrathful deities that arise from the nature of my own mind. So basically, it's saying like you must recognize these wrathful deities, these evil faces, as part of you, and also as part of the peaceful deities that you saw before. And if you can recognize them for who they are, they would dissipate. They basically you're able to overcome that fear and further further.
And then, so with these like kind of like images, you could say it kind of goes to the idea that I think I've read before, that it says that since you're in the life of samsara, you as a human, you carry like traits from different spirits from different realms. So you're
Yeah.
saying that
Mhm.
these ideas of these images of some wrathful deities, or like,
Yeah.
some forms, could be kind of like the karma inside of you, the karma
It
that's like
is.
part of
Uh,
you. And then it's kind of like the images that subside within yourself, and then it's
mhm.
trying to like test you, how would you feel about it, or how can you deal with this, so to say, right? Kind of.
Yeah, you basically tested it against your own self, and you have to overcome these. Um, but you have various moments. In the second Bardo, you have various opportunities. Unlike the first Bardo, it's just kind of like that one opportunity. Do you merge with the light? Do you and become one with it, and also nothingness? Um, or but in the second Bardo, for example, you have multiple opportunities to realize the peaceful deities and then transform, or the wrathful deities and then transform. But then if you don't, you have yet another bardo that you encounter where you do another couple chances to become enlightened before you are actually reborn. And this is the Sidpad Bardo, which is part of the birth. And this is also, I think, one of the ones that take the longest out of the experience. Many of the times it's described as like you get to visit or journey through this life and see um, how they are dealing with it, and sometimes we get to like revisit the areas. We can't really communicate with it, but we can see, and we can also experience this clairvoyant thought, which I have a little excerpt on that, where we can um, it says the clairvoyance of a dead person. Remember that the clairvoyant consciousness of the person in the bardo of becoming is 7 times clearer than life. This can bring them either great suffering or great benefit. It's beneficial that after someone you love has died, you are aware as possible in all your behavior, so as not to disturb them or hurt them. For when the person is dead returns to those who are left behind, those invited to practice on their behalf, they are able in their new state of being not only to see what's going on, but to read minds directly. And then it also goes on to talk about like how one is able to like uh, fly around the world and basically not be limited. They have this clairvoyance and like ability to be present anywhere they want to be.
Kind of like how with that idea is, you see in movies, maybe Hollywood or other
Okay.
like type of genres, of people either having the near death experience, or in that show or movie that they're in the process of dying, but then they're with someone, either it be a deity, either by themselves, and they go like venture on into the world and kind of see different experiences from like a third person
Yeah.
outlook, but
Hmm.
you can't actually, have any actual interaction with it. It's just like an image, a scene that you see and you witness, like as you're flying. Well, I wouldn't say if you're flying, you're just like going through that
Right, right, right.
Bardo death process.
But it's described like flying because it's like this closest thing that we know to it. But yeah, basically it's
Yeah.
like the hovering of like that spirit.
Hmm.
So you get to basically revisit and see people suffering. It also describes like if there's like greed with like between family members. numbers that really upsets the person that dies if people realize that they weren't loved and they were just basically loved because of the material things that they had. That really hurts, and that really brings about like traumatic like experiences in the afterlife. um, or people are fighting over the possessions of like, oh, like I want to have, I want to inherit their house, or like stuff like that, like people fighting over money and whatnot.
Yeah, you hear those stories, yeah.
People, they have this bit, and this is really helpful too for people to reflect on the afterlife. Like they see this and they're like, wow, like a lot of people are either very hollow, or they have superficial like wants and desires, and like you realize this and then you're like, okay, well, this is the nature of reality. A lot of people
Hmm.
suffer because of these attachments, and it creates like these unwanted situations in your life. So then you are given this opportunity to basically make peace with the people, um, that 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 you're leaving behind. In a way, sometimes you can, in a way, communicate. Like I had an example when, it's described a lot when people pass away. Sometimes people have an opportunity, or have an experience of that person, either, and it's not necessarily like visually, but it's like something that's like felt. Um, for example, I had an experience when a loved one passed away of, I was like sleeping, and then I became consciously aware of the room that I was in sleeping, and I started to hear footsteps, like really heavy thumping footsteps
Hmm.
on the wooden floor, and I immediately recognized in my sleep, kind of like halfway in between, I immediately recognized that these were the footsteps of that person, because I not that I like, I mean, I just recognized it. There, it was like, okay, like it's
Wow.
dark, yeah, so but then I felt this, I was on a couch, and like they eventually, like, they walked around, and they basically stood right where I was laying, and I felt this like this multicolored, but this is all like while my eyes were shut, but I felt this hovering energy, this intensity, and basically I woke up, and then it dissolved. But basically I knew for me what it meant. It was a way of like that person making peace with me, or like telling me, hey, I'm here, I'm okay. Like, basically it was a very insightful, and very like, it gave me a different perspective,
Uh,
because although I heard a bunch of accounts, I've never experienced it myself. So
I, I've yeah, I've also had a very similar experience of that. So when my cousin passed away,
yeah,
he's fairly young, right? And
uh-huh,
then shortly after that, kind of like during the process of the whole 49 days
yeah,
thing, I'm pretty sure I've had a dream of about him. He appeared
uh-huh,
in my dream,
yeah,
and he looked normal, he looked normal. He looked normal. He was with my dad and my uncle, and then it just like looked like any normal day. And kind of
hmm,
like after I had that dream, you're right. It's kind of like that reassurance, that the spirit of them letting go, that just saying that it's my time to go. Everything's gonna be okay, and that.
right. And they can either manifest themselves like in a way that's physical, or through dreams, or
Sure.
through other states.
Hmm.
So so that happens. So finishing up on the last part of, um so one's also giving these hallucinations, and they're able to, see their family and all that stuff. And they're then they're about to be reborn. They leave everything behind, and they start to basically, the, the, because of their karma, they start to like, kind of, in a way, it's not necessarily like they're picking and choosing where they're gonna go, but their karma kind of um like
Determines.
determines, and kind of like whirlpools them into like a situation, and typically it's like a situation of like, Yabium imagery of like a woman and a man passionately intertwined, or having intercourse or whatnot, and you're experiencing that, or you're seeing it, and there's something about that attracts you, like the creation of life, or the dualism of male and female coming as one, having an experience. Um, so that's very attracting for this person. So basically, that guides them into being reborn, but they have a few opportunities before basically once that person fails to recognize that, they're basically they're about to be reborn, and their life is that they're being reborn into is pretty much guided by the temptations or the karma or things that they weren't able to to what
Fulfilled, maybe.
fulfill, work out, and during their death states. So basically, you're putting yourself in a life to where you can further develop and further be tested certain aspects of yourself and your life to where you can overcome, or make way to overcome. So as you're coming into existence, your life is basically the beginning of it is based on like this attachment that you had, and to these certain people, and that all now become your father, and your mother, and it kind of talks about how we kind of choose them, and how the lessons that they have the potential to teach us, like, are the lessons that are very beneficial for us to, um,
Learn
to
from.
encounter, and
Mhm.
yeah, to learn from and encounter. So yeah, it's a very interesting stuff. So those are the those are the last of the six bardos. Once you are reborn, though, you have different states to where you can be reborn in samsara. Um, and then this goes through like the God realm, which is the most pleasure filled. Sometimes it can be, I feel like, physical reincarnation of like you.
Yeah, they do state that it's kind of like them having like a spirit, like a body, so they do feel like bodily pleasures because they're able to eat.
They
But then,
feel earthly pleasures, yeah, and
yeah,
then
but then they don't feel any like pains at all, like such as, like let's say, we as humans, we get either back pain, leg
right,
cramps, stomach ache,
yeah.
headache. They don't feel any of those like kind of like bodily pains.
Yeah,
And
and these are very like these states of samsara realm are very broad. They can be further broken down, and they are in the tradition. So like the God realm has, for example, like 26 more specific realms. That and basically, if you're born into this realm, it comes from good karma. Um, but it's like I said, like good. There's no such thing as good karma. Like there's only an ability to be more exposed to the teachings, more resources to become enlightened. And the God realm is that. But since it's so pleasure filled with so many capabilities to please yourself, a lot of people become distracted,
yeah, they become preoccupied with all these pleasures that
because
they're engaging in.
because they don't suffer. And I mean, if you're
Hmm.
giving everything and you're not suffering, then I mean, eventually you will end up suffering. But if you're always distracted with not suffering, then you're never reminded of the true nature of reality. So
Yep.
therefore, you take it for granted, and that's what happens. And a lot of these people in the God realm, they typically get reincarnated in a lower realm, like a human realm, later on, because they're not able to overcome that and practice, their detachment from attachment, or material things, and then practice that nirvana state. So the second state is the human state, which for many people is seen as like the most the kind of like the in between the God realm and like also like the animal realm, to where you suffer, but you also have the consciousness.
Hmm.
You suffer just enough to know the nature of reality, and like to have the opportunity to reach nirvana and practice. Um, but you're also kind of like limited on the pleasures that you receive. It's kind of like a 50-50. You suffer
Yeah,
50, and you're pleased at 50, as opposed to like God realm, you're always being pleased. So it's like a equilibrium to where you can actually like have a way of like not being distracted and fulfill your spiritual path. Did you have something to say about that?
so yeah, in the human realm, it's also emphasized that it's very important that we have our life as a human. So our opportunities
Yeah,
shouldn't be wasted, like
that's
the
what the
Buddha,
Buddha said. Yeah.
yeah, the Buddha emphasizes that like human life is precious. So, we should try to do things in our life that can can
Take
like provide
advantage of
us
the
good
moment.
merit. Yeah, good merit. Engage in meditation. Engage in like religious practices, maybe. So to say, to elevate us from a state that because the human realm is mostly based on desires too.
Yes.
So basically we're stuck here is because of certain desires that we have in us that kind of prevent us from reaching that state of enlightenment. So it's saying that throughout our human life we can like slowly but surely work our way towards enlightenment.
Yeah. So the third state is the demigod or the anti. It's just like an individual that can be physically present or can or maybe not, um, but the person has supernatural capabilities or like these powerful opportunities to really disrupt humans and fight against gods and basically cause chaos. Basically, the the yang or the yin, like basically that oppositional force. um and these people are, it's said to be like from bad karma. But yeah, these people basically cause like illness and like bickering and like argument and like basically anything that is against the path of the gods or nirvana. So um
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. So
yeah.
with the demigod realm, like it's also called the Asura realm, or you could
Okay.
also compare them to the Titans in Greek mythology, because
Okay.
they're compared to as the Titans because the Titans, they turned on the rest of the gods. They're against the rest of the gods. So
Yeah.
what these demigods, these Asuras, these Titans, they are the basically the idea of power, of greed, and of
Hmm.
ego, because they can't put aside their differences, their bickering.
Right.
They're seen as like these mighty figures, but in the end they're still lower than the devas in the god realm. They're not, they do engage in pleasures, but they're also too worried about fighting, bickering,
Right.
power, like this and that is just, yeah, that's
I mean, a lot of people that have a lot of power, like world leaders and whatnot, they could honestly be considered like a
S-
demigod. Like uh,
s-
if they don't have the good.
So, but that is true, because that goes to say that what I was talking about earlier. So it's believed that we do have different stages of samsara spirits inside of us. And then I
Yeah.
did read that you're right, politicians, or maybe like, like
People that
um
lie or
money,
people
yeah, money
that
hungry, that get
yes,
to the top, but then they do it in kind of like an evil way, or like an
to
unjust
step
way,
over people
yeah,
and
step
yeah,
over people to get to the top. Like
right.
it says that those people have an asura or a demigod kind of spirit, like it's
That
the most
possesses
thing,
them
yeah, that
sometimes, and then like some people in like Western religion or other thoughts might see them as like possessed by a demon, and then in a way they are.
they are, because those are the asuras, basically they are a type of demon, so to say.
And it's like an instinct, it's like an impulse
Mhm.
that these people have, and they in a way they can't control it. That is in control of them.
Yeah, it
Um,
empowers them, that, so to say too.
Exactly. Which leads me to the fourth realm that you can be reincarnated to, which is the animal realm, which is like a more primitive consciousness led strictly by desire and instinct and impulse. Um, uh, just like survival and trying to feed yourself
Hmm.
and feed your your offspring and survive. But I don't know. I feel like animals have can live a virtuous life or like live a life that is they're able to reincarnate into a human. I mean, obviously that happens,
It is,
but
because
mhm,
there's some stories I've heard that if you take certain animals, and if they
yeah,
read, well, I mean, not even read, if they hear dharma, because they can't read, obviously, because they don't have a consciousness like we humans do,
yeah,
right? They do have a primitive stage of consciousness where they focus on food, would that be sex, would that be sleep, things of that nature. So if they are able to hear some dharma, it's possible that the animal can later turn into a human. Actually, there are like
Did
stories
you
that I've
did you
heard
hear
from
that
monks.
story? I don't know. I mean, you're Buddhist, so did you hear the story about Buddha finding the lioness with her cubs, and like she was about
Oh
to eat
yeah,
her?
yeah.
Yeah,
She
tell
was
me
so
about it.
hungry. She was so hungry
Right.
that whoever the person was, that he was supposed to be the Buddha later. The Siddhartha Gautam, he's supposed
Yeah.
to be him later. But in that life that he was, when he engaged with that lioness,
Yeah.
he gave up his own life in compassion
He
because he
gave him a
saw,
part of his flesh,
yeah, because he saw that
a
the
desperate instinct
yeah.
and impulse to like having to like survive. So she was gonna eat her cubs, but like when he offered his flesh, she didn't eat her cubs. She ate, the flesh, and then like they
If because of his compassion that he was able to show from her, he's like, I
weren't
don't
weren't,
want you to
weren't
suffer, huh?
weren't the animals or the lioness weren't they able to become a lion as well at that moment, or something?
I don't know too much about like what would happen to those animals later. It could be possible later because after that later maybe that lioness could have been either a human maybe in the Buddha's life later, because they said that the experience that we face in our life, we're able to experience it again, because when the Buddha came back, actually he was saying that he also gave a sermon like this before when he made it
Uh,
rain blood. I think he made it rain blood. One of the first times that he came back was to like kind of like show his family members like this has happened in the past life before this and that, and then it's just him kind of like reassuring that he's here again. He's just trying to pinpoint the experiences that he's had with them in the past before, and
but
then so that they can slowly engage in the spiritual path towards enlightenment.
you always hear um these stories about people doing really great things for animals, and then animals being able to like show their gratitude in their way, which is very like fascinating to people, because people are like, well, they're just animals, but animals have, they're led by these instinctual and impulses and this primitive consciousness, but they also are able to recognize in part of their limited consciousness certain acts. So I mean, you see that, like for example, someone rescuing a baby elephant, and the elephant mom, like, or elephant dad or whatever, they give like thanks to that person that rescues them, and then they go off or whatever. But
Oh
what what
yes.
I what
Speaking
I
on that story about the
yeah.
elephant, there's actually another story about the Buddha. In his
Right.
past life, he was an elephant, and
Oh,
so
okay.
as a baby elephant, he was taken care of his by his mother elephant. But one day she got old, I think, and then I think she also got blind. And then a king came, and then he said he wanted the elephant, and then he was taken away from his mother. So then after that, the king, he was saying that the baby elephant was upset. He was like, baby elephant, why are you so upset? And then he
Uh,
was like, I have to be with my mother. She's very old right now, and there's no one to take care of her. And so the king actually frees the elephant, and then the elephant goes back to the baby mother, to I mean to the mother as a baby, and then
yeah,
take
yeah,
care
yeah.
So yeah, that's actually one of the stories about Siddharth being a elephant. It's really
O-
interesting.
Okay, so wrapping up, the fifth realm is basically the hungry ghost, restless spirit, which is basically someone goes through the bardos and isn't it is like, I think, might be either stuck in that like last bardo of like they being reborn, but they have that they see their family, or they see these attachments that people have, and they're like um, excessively like craving it or
Hmm.
wanting to be attached to it, and they don't want to let go, and they don't want to like reincarnate. So these are called like the hungry ghosts. And then there's stories about like families in these traditions where they leave food outside, ghosts that
Hmm.
need to feed themselves, excessive pleasures. Um, so basically, when their bad karma demerits or runs out, they're finally able to be it is basically seen as like having a really bad karma to where you can't leave this place. And a lot of people describe it as like a lingering presence that's not able to let go of either something tragic that happened, or just any type of attachment that they have. Um, but so the last realm, though, the hell realm, which also has different categories within it, typically described as 8 hot realms and 8 cold realms. This is like the worst of the worst,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, incarnate into. But I don't think this is not actually something that's like physical. It's something that you're stuck in without being actually reborn. It's like a temporary hell from like the Western perspective. And this comes about like severe things that are caused like by, and I think it's things more severe than theft, the lying, and adultery. But I think that these are just like common things to get you thinking about what people do, like in severe, like to a severe degree that kind of makes them be reborn into these realms. But however, unlike Christianity, there's no such thing as eternal damnation. So although these hell realms are described to last thousands and eons and millions of years, um, eventually um, you suffer so much that your karma basically runs out, and you are, or your bad karma runs out, and you're able to reincarnate into either a human or an animal at least. Um, but yeah, those are the 6 different states that one can be reborn, or either experience after they go through the 3
Yeah, it
bardos.
it it, it says that there's, and in our Mahayana traditions, it says that we might experience some of these stages while we're going through there, but because of our karma, we actually won't end up there. Like we might see like flashes or images of it, maybe so to say, throughout the various Bardo stages. But yeah, it mostly depends kind of like on our karma, and then kind of like what happens throughout our lives, that they would say. And I think in some traditions, yeah, there's some sutras that do describe like the different levels of hell, and then like actually
Uh,
the gruesome descriptions of what actually goes on in there. And
right.
yeah, yeah, it's very detailed, because it was said that during the twin miracle, where the Buddha performed the twin miracle, and then he was like spewing out fire and water from like various different sides of his body.
Yeah.
He was able to also show people throughout the time that he did those miracles, certain miracles, that he showed them like what actual heavens look like, and then the actual realms of hell actually rose up into the earth, so people were able to see like
Mm.
the duality of things. Like, you have like a very good side, you have a very bad side. But yeah.
Hi, how we doing, everyone? My name is James Ho, and my name is Phillip Duong. And to review, you and Leo were talking about reincarnation, and you discussed the truths and the paths. And what I'm going to talk about today is the different perspectives of reincarnation and resurrection from the Christian perspective. Um, so the question is, why resurrection and why reincarnation? What are the two differences, and why does Buddhism tend to reject resurrection, and why do Christians reject reincarnation? Um, Next slide. As Christians, we recite a prayer, just how the Buddhists recite a prayer. It's called the Apostle Creed. It affirms the belief that what has happened to us after we would die. There's a quote: "I believe in the resurrection of the body and the life everlasting," meaning that when we die, we will come back to our body. That Jesus has resurrected us with the body that we lived, and we continue to live that life in that body again with Jesus Christ. It's the one physical body at the end of time. It's the central in the Buddhist system, it's the system of reincarnation into the next life. But the Christian system is the resurrection of the body. It's our core value that we believe that there is life after death, and we continue to live that life in heaven. So in other words, when we die, we are buried, and Jesus comes back on Judgment Day to bring us back from the dead. Yes. So, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of like with that idea, you're right. So Christian believes that there is kind of like an eternal life, so to say, afterlife, because we are reunited with Jesus and God. And so I could kind of compare that to Pure Land Buddhism. It's kind of like a similar thing,
Right.
where Buddhists believe in the faith of Amitabha,
Yeah.
which is, some could compare him to Jesus or God, because in that realm of the Pure Land bliss, you exist in a state of bliss, of eternal, like light, eternal
Yes.
life.
Yes.
So that's kind of like the comparison.
Yeah, very quite similar. But to continue on, through the Catholic Church, the immortal soul will live on after death. The Buddhist doesn't believe that the soul will continue on. The soul is a new soul. You either born into what you deserve, or you move on to a better soul, a better life. But this belief comes about for Christians because we fear death. We don't know what's going to happen, and we believe in this faith because we are born into this faith of believing that we can beat death and be who we are now, because all the love and the belief that we believe in Jesus now, we don't want that to fade. We don't want that to go away. We want to continue being who we are now. So this is why many Christians believe in Jesus Christ and the resurrection so much, is because we don't want to forget who we are today. And it comes from the story. So it all falls back when Jesus was crucified. He died on the Friday, and then he resurrected on the third day, which is the Sunday. But when he came back walking through walls. He had special powers, miracles, having his apostles speak in different languages and different tongues. And he said that he will come back on Judgment Day when the time is right to bring everyone back into heaven. But the reason why Christians reject reincarnation is because it goes against, like I said, the salvation offered by Christ. And then it goes against the nature of a human person. So reincarnation contradicts the picture of salvation that is in the New Testament, where it depicts Christ crucified, resurrection from the dead, and it gives us a unique, different picture of what it is to be a human being. A disembodied self isn't related to any particular time, whereas the Buddhists see life as a process and different lifetime, a journey. So it's like your measure into each level, whereas Christians, it's eternal. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, so basically with that, so with Buddhists, there's like a whole process through it. There's a whole, cause and effect through it. While in Christian belief, there's an eternal heaven. There's Jesus and God waiting for you at the light at the end of the tunnel, so to say.
Right. But the conflict among Christians is the Catholic dogma, is the resurrection details, that we would only rise from the same body we have. Do we know that's true? Because the time that I've lived, I haven't died yet, and I'm still who I am today. Jesus has not come back yet. It has not been Judgment Day, so we don't know if we will be ourselves again. But from a human nature and our capability of seeing, like, we have not seen any of our loved ones that have passed come back to life. We feel like they are now in heaven. That's the only belief that we have, but we have not seen anyone resurrected from the dead. But we don't know that maybe they have been resurrected in heaven from a part where we don't see, because we haven't died yet. So the only way to know is when we die. But the only problem is, when we die, will we have that question again? Will we have that conscious belief that we are who we are now? And
Yeah, so with that, I have a question for you. So is there anything in the Catholic or Christian dogma that talks about kind of like maybe dreams or images or kind of like the imagery you get from a loved one that's passed away, like, is there a way for them to like kind of come back and communicate with you, or
Well, I think this is where Buddhism and Christianity cross path, is because we in both religions they do understand that there are spirits and souls that maintain who they were before, and sometimes it's hard for them to move on, so they linger on in this time. So in Catholicism, it's when you see your loved ones come back again, we see them as spirits, our loved ones coming back to share with us a happy moment or give us a message of the future. Many people have these experiences, and I would like to share that I have seen my grandma when she passed away in my dreams many times, but you know after she passed away. But psychologically, you would think maybe because I'm thinking of her too much, maybe I miss her, that our subconscious mind brings that image back again when we sleep. When you dream, they say that you only dream what you've seen before. You just can't categorize it in what it is and why you see it. But it's believed that you've seen those images before. Whereas Buddhism, like, they understand those lost souls and are still lost because they can't move on into their new life, because in their past life they have some problem or something they're holding back where they can't let go. So it all depends on what you experience when that happens. But in both beliefs, you understand that in Buddhism, like, you pray for the soul to move on, and you offer thanks and give them food. And Catholicism is the same way. You offer them food, you pray for them, you pray that they will find their way back to Jesus Christ. um, but there is no explanation of what same is here in the big transformation of the rise in the body. There is no proof that you will come back to who you were before. Yeah, so um, moving on, Christians believe that the resurrected Christ, once resurrected, was able to walk through walls. I think I already discussed about that, but he came back performing miracles and touching people's lives, and even now today, he has, to many people around the world, people have claimed to see Jesus Christ in visions, um, doing miracles by sending angels and saints appearing to many people in life. That gives them hope, that saying, hey, like, this is not just this life goes on beyond death. And how I believe Christianity and Buddhism is how you live now will carry on to you in the next life. It all depends on what you believe. And I believe in Christianity with resurrection. um, Faith is a gift. Faith is a gift that you must receive, because if you don't have faith in something you don't understand or you don't know, then you can't believe. Believing in something greater than yourself is the true core value of Christianity, and that's why resurrection is a core thing. Is because you don't know. You just have to believe in something greater than yourself.
there's something higher than us that is something we can't grasp in our regular everyday lives. There's something something more bigger than us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's and within Buddhism is acceptance. It's knowing that this life is this life, and you to have no attachment, and to live through it, be in the present, not the future, the past. Like, what I want to emphasize is that in Catholicism, your faith comes from your history, comes from all the biblical scriptures of all the saints and all the religious figures, all their stories to explain the moral values as how Christians should live. And you have hope in the future of what is to come for everlasting happiness and being with God. Whereas Buddhism, it's all about being in the present, no past, no future. It's all about now. So that's why Buddhism and Christianity can't be on the same page, is because Buddhism is more about being in the moment, whereas Christianity is looking in the past, and then hoping for the future. Um, you know, Many Christians, love themselves, and they love themselves too much, to a point where they are so attached to who they are now. And that's why many Christians are Christians, because they want to believe that who they are now they will see again in the next life. They don't want to forget. They don't want to move on. Whereas Buddhism is, this is who you are now. You are not. You are not you. You are just inside of a world of what is you in your past life determines how you are now. So how you are now will determine who you are in the next life. So compare and contrast. I think Christianity is just all about the resurrection and hoping that you will be risen from the dead. And Buddhism is just moving on to the next life. There's not.
And it's kind of like, so in Buddhism, there's also belief that our past karma, our past lives, our past decisions, all adds up to also this continuous life, because everything is impermanent
Right.
in the Buddhist belief.
That's very true, and part of it is because attachment. Attachment. Even our loved ones, we want to see our loved ones in heaven. No, we can't bear the fact that this only in this life, this is all we get to see of our loved ones. And even now, we want to have hope that we'll see the loved ones that have passed now. We hope to see them later again when we pass away. So that it all comes down to what you believe in. So to whatever you believe in, either God, Buddha, Hindu, or your Islamic, whatever you choose to believe in, it's a gift. It's a gift that the universe has given you to have faith in and have hope. Um, whether one side is right or one side is wrong, we are all bound to the same place. Some people may have the ability to pick the right faith and understand it more than the other, but it doesn't mean you're any better or any less of anyone else. um, what's as humans, you are going to die. Like, this life is not going to last forever, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that we know that all suffering will come to an end, whether you will be yourself again in the next life or you move on to the next one. It's an ongoing process, and I think the comparison between the two is there is death that we are bound to. So
And I'd like to add some touching notes to that. Yeah, it's life. It's a long journey. We have to live, and then we have to learn from our experiences, our mistakes, the people we've engaged with. We have to learn that it's a journey, and then kind of like we're all in it together too as humans. Like sometimes people might feel that oh, they're kind of like alone in this world. No one has their perspective or their own like sort of feelings, but we're all just humans. We have our own experiences, and kind of like all that accumulates into something like maybe even greater after we're gone.
yes. Well, my name is Phillip Duong.
My name's James Ho, and this is our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.